Hi, everybody. Will here from Canine Chronicle TV with this week's interview chair. And today we have Lyn Marques. So sit back and relax and listen to Kelly, please. Everybody, Will here with this week's interview chair. And this week we have Lyn Marques. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing great.
Good. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be at home and working from home. That's a new concept here.
I know. I just got in last night. I'm exhausted, but that's okay. We carry on. How was your weekend?
It was great. We had two concurrent shows. We had Connecticut River Working Group. So we had some working group specialties and running an all breed show. So it was a go weekend until you think you don't have any more gas in the tank, but you keep going, and that's what we do. So it was fun.
That's it. That's what we do. Yes. All right. Well, let's get started. Tell me how you got started in this sport of dogs and how old you were.
So my mom's first Doberman was born the year I was born. My mom and dad both had wanted pets when they were younger, couldn't have them. So I basically lived on a farm. We had horses and pigs and goats and cows and dogs. And so I grew up with animals. They started in horses, and my sister showed horses, and then they started making a transition into dogs. Not sure when that was. And I just know roughly, my early start, I was doing obedience with my dog. It was just fun to
How old were you?
Day. I'm guessing, again, I've had dogs my whole life. So my guess was maybe around between 6 and 8 doing some obedience. And then I know I was doing handling class around 8 years old because I was showing a junior showmanship at 10.
Oh, good.
So it's hard to pinpoint it because the animals and the dogs were there for so long. And my mom and dad were actually at a fun match. And someone said, "Oh, I didn't know your daughter shows dogs." And my mom said, "Oh, she doesn't." And they said, "Isn't that your daughter over there in the ring?" So I was just soliciting dogs and doing what, kids did at fun matches back in the day when we had those.
Well, I loved fun matches. It seemed like an outing back then, though.
Yes.
So where to go from there then? You competed in juniors, and was it always Dobermans then?
So I started in Dobermans, and actually my first junior's dog was a West Highland White Terrier because my parents thought that I was too short to show dogs. So they wanted me to have a dog appropriate for my size. And I actually went through the complete dog book trying to pick a breed. I love the Springer Spaniel, but then wasn't able to get one of those. I wanted a pointer. They said that was too tall, so I ended up going with a Westie. But Dobermans were my love because that's where I ended up. And I still remember my first class in junior showmanship as 10 years old. It's a class through either 10 or 12. Phil Marsman was a judge. So, Phil's still around. And I won my class because I had a Westie. And back in that day, the judges could trip you up. So they would ask us anatomy questions. And Phil had asked to see the bite, the teeth, and the mouth on my Westie. And he was very impressed with how confidently I showed the bite, the teeth, and the mouth. Of course, I come from Doberman, so that was
world, yes.
But yeah, that's where I got my start. Went all through juniors, showed in junior showmanship, and showed in breed as well. And I remember being maybe 12, 14 years old and competing in the open AOA class with 25 handlers at the time, and being a kid and getting so mad, when I couldn't win. So, yeah, it's been in it for.
Which makes you try harder, though.
Trust me, I showed against Gwen DeMilta. I learned if you didn't work hard, you weren't winning. So,
exactly.
Yes, and some great handlers.
So you stayed in juniors your whole juniors career. Did you carry on till 18 as a junior?
I did. I stayed in juniors until I aged out. And so I showed in juniors. I showed in the other breeds in conformation as well. I also was active in sports, and I went to college after I graduated from high school. So
were dogs put on hold then?
I did some showing. I went to school, to my state school. So I was still in my area. I was able to go to dog shows back then. I would have clients that would drive me to the shows, sometimes in between college and
so you
work.
Were showing dogs professionally at this point then
on a limited basis, yes. I kind of always kept my fingers in the pot. And so I did show some dogs in college. I had another job to support myself through college. And then I got a job in marketing and public relations, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree, and was working full-time in marketing and public relations and showing dogs on the weekends. And what was surprising to me is I had this fancy notion in my head of what it would look like being a professional career person. I think I like the idea of getting dressed up and wearing a suit and looking like a professional, but it became pretty clear to me that working in an office from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, feeling cooped up, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't me.
It's not for us.
and so I was lucky at the time. The job I had this thing called earn time, and you could actually work holidays. You had flex time, and all of my time off was spent at dog shows. And I made an agreement with myself that when I was earning a certain amount of income, that I would retire. I would stop working in marketing public relations and go full time with the handling. And once I did that, my career just took off.
So about what time did that happen? How old were you?
I was 30 when I just decided to stop doing both and just going exclusively as a professional handler.
So you never ever worked for anyone then? You never were an assistant?
When I was a junior, I worked with Cara Petruzzo. I did not travel with a handler. I would work a lot ringside with Gwen DeMilta, Terry Hunt. And there were just lots of Doberman handlers that I worked with. And, when I was 12, 13, 14, they had me going back in the ring on their dogs. But I did not go off and work with a handler. As a matter of fact,
you grew up in dogs, so was that
I grew up in dogs. But what actually I find funny is when I was finished up my campaign with Raisin, it became I'm very single-minded, and when I focus on something, I focus on something. So my life was Dobermans. And when I was done showing Raisin, I thought, boy, there's a lot else out there. You really should learn how to groom terriers and some of these other breeds, and you should learn to do that. And I was curious about it, and I did show Springers, which they would scissor for me, and I would blow the coat out. I enjoyed that. And it just got to a point that at that age, I thought, I really like these wash and wear dogs. I'm doing well, like financially, I was fine. And I just made a decision where I'm like, no, I'm open to showing other breeds. I enjoyed showing other breeds. And I would have people, like I had a Portuguese water dog client that ended up asking me if I could show a Portuguese water dog. And I said, I can't trim it, I can't touch it, but if you can spray it up and groom it, I can show just about anything. And that was fun for me. I would actually have some clients that groomed up all of their dogs, and my, friends would laugh at me because, don't give me a brush. I don't know what to do with that. But I loved working with the different temperaments. I love hair. I mean, it's fun, it's beautiful. But no, I don't have any expertise. Do not give me scissors or a brush. I don't know what to do with it.
Well, it's interesting because there are working dog handlers. In America, it's easier to specialize than any place else in the world because of the numbers, obviously. And when you have a specialized, like a Doberman handler or a boxer handler, you guys get so good that it's amazing. It's so much fun to watch.
Well, and for a little while, I felt less than because I didn't know all of these things that the other handlers knew. But when I would talk with other handlers and they would talk about Doberman handlers, it actually did make me feel really good about what we do know, because Dobermans are a naked breed, you need to learn how to camouflage and create these illusions by how you stack your dog, how you get your dog to lean and position themselves, how you draw attention to the dog's attributes. And you need to do all of this with a naked breed. So what some people do with coat, we do just knowing exactly how to position a dog, get a dog fired up, really knowing how to, as I would say in my book, when I talk about Gwen DeMilta, is learning how to manipulate bone and flesh. And back in the day when I did show only Dobermans, I had 11 Dobermans. I mean, that was 11 Dobermans, a couple, 11 Dobermans, and a couple boxers, couple other breeds for one person. That was good. That was great. I was happy with that.
Oh, for sure.
And then
enough.
Times changed, but I have come to learn that there's some of the Doberman handlers have been known as some of the great handlers back in the day, because we were aggressive and we were feisty, and when you stepped into the Doberman ring, you knew you were stepping into some really talented handlers.
You had to earn it. No
and we liked fighting. I mean, we loved it's like, we're Dobermans. We're like a good fight. That was fun. We feel alive.
Yeah, that happens even up here. I'll watch the Doberman ring, and there's a few that are so competitive even up here, and they get into it.
It was when I showed labs for a while, and when I first went into the lab ring, it's all intense, and I looked around. I was like, oh, okay. Ooh, we need to calm it down, wag the tail. And it was fun for me to actually learn to show up differently for different breeds of dogs. With the Dobermans, obviously I show up very differently with each dog, but it was a very, very different going into, say, the Whippet ring. And you can't force a Whippet to show.
No.
And I got one, and I thought, I'm a very determined, I'll figure you out. And what I figured out is with the Whippet, I got graced with a performance, or I didn't. You just don't push a hound like you do a Doberman. The breeds are very, very different with what they need emotionally and how you work them.
There's no question. There's a breed-specific way of showing each one of these dogs. So, So you were on your own in your 30s. Where did it go from there? Who was your first impactful dog that you showed?
Well, my first major dog was Champion Blue Chip Purple Rain. And I had shown top 20 contenders before, but I had shown them locally, and showing locally was enough to get into the top 20. And that was a great goal at that age, especially showing against Gwen DeMilta. Back in that time, just getting out of the breed ring was, that was tough.
Oh, I always tell when I talk to handlers or young handlers, and they say they want to get a Doberman. They want to get a Doberman. Well, be prepared to, you don't win the breed every day with a Doberman. You have to make hay while the sun shines when you do win the breed.
Yes, and that was such an eye opener running a national campaign. It is completely different than showing a dog locally, putting a dog in the top 10 or the top 20. It is a completely different experience.
Yeah.
In how, and you really need to step up. It's a whole nother ballgame.
Well, and you're always on the go, and you're always thinking, and you're thinking about the next day, really. You're always thinking ahead what you're going to do. It's very taxing on us and the dogs, but
yes. Well, I found I loved it. I loved that mental strategy, and just, it was pretty much an adrenaline high the entire campaign. Whether it was, thinking, driving, just the physical demands of it, it was pretty incredible.
Right.
And I learned a lot. And that changed so much of how I experienced dog shows, was that campaign.
You still remember your first big win, your first best in show?
Oh, yes. My first best in show was with a female that I got into the top 20, and we were showing up at some local shows in Maine. And what I just found so funny is when I won best in show, there was zero reaction. It was, act like you've been here before. You've done, and as a handler, I was always really controlling my emotions. And we ended up actually winning back to back. So I won my first best in show at some shows in Maine, and then we won best in show again the second day. And that was really exciting. And it was exciting. Not that anybody saw that I was excited, but it was a big deal when you're young and you just want it so bad. And it's a pretty special experience.
Oh, for sure it is. Yeah. I remember mine as well. So how did that first dog, Raisin, how did she come about? She a dog or bitch? I can't remember.
She was a bitch.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did that come? How did that happen? How did you end up with that bitch? And they decided we're gonna try to make a run for this one. So.
Yeah, I love talking about this, especially for young handlers that are watching, because I was so hungry and I just wanted to show, and I wanted to compete with the best handlers. And I had my doubt that I was, will you ever be able to compete at that level? And I got this really beautiful, Raisin was a fireball. She loved to show, and she was just like a lion on the end of the lead. You really had to contain her. And the owner had hired me to show her at a show that her other handler couldn't make it to. And that it was just a one-time deal. Ended up winning, of course, won the next day. Then she just wanted to show her here and there. And we ended up showing at a couple of shows. Then she ended up asking me to take her to the Doberman National. And I showed her at the Doberman National under Gene Hobb, and he gave her winner's bitch. So it was a, great winning at Doberman Nationals. And there were a lot of people watching. And it all just came together without me even trying. I used to, go to Andy Litton and say, well, how do you find a backer? And Andy said, they'll find you. And of course I'm young. And what do you mean? Like they'll find you, and I think now that I'm older, I can understand when you see talent, and Andy saw talent in me, and he said, they'll find you. So when I was off the Doberman National, I was approached by Roy and Joanne Kuzumoto, and they asked me if I would go to dinner with them and their handler Mo. And they had said, Mo, Mo needed, at some point, maybe Mo was going to retire. They wanted to work with someone younger, and being able to have a couple of different handlers would be helpful. So they just expressed interest in possibly showing Raisin, maybe having me show a couple of their class dogs, and it all just fell into place. And I just felt, I was unproven at the time, and I knew I had a great dog. I knew I had great owners, and I just didn't want to mess it up. And it was just an incredible ride. My owners believed in me. My dog believed in me. It was just me that didn't believe in me. And I learned so much. In my book, I talked with Taffy McFadden, and Taffy talked about how when she showed Spirit that she was just her armband holder. And Raisin was that kind of a dog for me. She was just strong. She was solid. I didn't have to fix her. I didn't have to change her. And when she showed, it was just, wow, she lived to do it. And it was incredible.
Well, you touched on your books, and I was going to bring it up anyway. So let's talk about your book. How did this all come about?
Again, it's some of what amazes me is some of the most amazing things just happen. And the book, I had gone through
the book is called Behind the Scenes of Best in Show.
Yes. So the book is called Behind the Scenes of Best in Show, Intimate Moments with the Masters. And I interviewed, I think, 12 handlers in the industry. So I could show different perspectives. One of the reasons why I wanted to do that is because I understand how I work, but I really wanted to understand how other handlers work. And I had been at a place in my life where there were a lot of life changes, and I was interacting with more non-dog show people. And when I would describe what I do to non-dog show people, I was actually getting fascinated with what it is that I do. Because like a fish in water, you don't know who you are out of the water. When I would describe what was going on in my head, the decisions that I made, I was finding myself much more fascinating. and I thought to myself, if I have all of this going through my head, what is actually going on in the heads of these other handlers when they're making these decisions, when they're having to make these calls? So that was one of my thoughts for interviewing many different handlers. And I also saw so much value in the other handlers, and the book wasn't supposed to be about me. The book was supposed to be about us. And the other thing I find very, very interesting is I was never a writer as a child. I excelled in math and science, and the desire to write came out of nowhere. It was this, I would say, a calling as I was stepping back from dog showing and giving me more space to try to have more life balance. I had more downtime away from dog shows, and I kept feeling this churning that came from my gut, this desire to write, and I didn't understand it. But it was getting so noisy, and I had all these thoughts that I was working one day, and I said, okay, Friday, I will sit down with you on Friday. And I went out on a Friday morning and sat next to my rose bush outdoors, and I just started writing. And it ended up being my first article, Be the Change You Wish to See. And it felt really great. It just poured out. And when it poured out, I just felt better. I didn't know if it was any good. I closed my laptop and was like, oh, thank God that voice just was quiet in my head, and I felt calmer, and I was done. And I ended up about a week.
I understand that.
Yeah, it was just, I didn't understand it. And about a week later, I opened up my laptop and read it. And I thought to myself, this is really good, but what do I do with it? And so this desire to write started with writing some articles. I had some articles that were going on, and I didn't know what to do with them. Ended up putting some of those in the AKC Handlers newsletter. Then I had an article that was too big for that newsletter and happened to be ringside one day and was next to Matt Stander. And he said, Kelly, I didn't know you're writing. I want you writing for Dog News. And that made me really nervous. And I was like, well, I actually have something I've written. Oh, give it to me. So it started with articles. And then the book, the desire to write the book just seemed so perfect, because as all of this is coming together, it's making more sense to me. Ever since I was little, and when I showed in junior showmanship, I would get so upset because the kids were mean. And, there was a lot of backstabbing and people talking behind your back. And, when I was a kid, it's one of the reasons why I preferred being with dogs, because people can be so mean.
Right.
And as a young handler in the dog show industry, I would get very disheartened, because this is something that we love. And people were so angry at each other and angry at AKC and angry at politics. And I wanted to help be a solution for that. Yet when I got into showing, I did my best to show up and be my best version. But, I had my share of anger, frustration, and things that I brought into it.
Yeah.
We're
people.
We're people. And I think that's even some of what I was coming to the conclusion of, man, being a human, it's not easy.
No.
And so a huge underlying why my book comes from the heart is because I wanted to make a difference. And my hope is that this book can help make a difference. It talks about the struggles that we have as handlers and as humans. And
sorry.
Yes.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. And I was fascinated. I was curious. I didn't understand. I didn't have an outline. I knew where my heart was, and I just wanted to follow it and see where it went. And it would just lead me to be curious about Taffy McFadden. And so I said to Carissa, who I show Dobermans with, I didn't know Taffy personally. And I said to Carissa, do you know Taffy? Could you reach out to Taffy and see what she would be open to doing an interview with me for this book that I'm writing? And Carissa said, oh, yeah, sure. So Carissa helped bridge some gaps. And I just followed my intuition with curiosity for who, just to show up and just start asking people questions and just seeing where the book flowed and took me. And it was really fun. It was fun to do something different. Again, I didn't have an outline, and yet when the book was done and I look back and I'm like, oh, looks like I had a plan.
Yeah, it is.
But it was fun to go from left-brained, have to have all my ducks in a row, Kelly, to just showing up, following my intuition. It was fun when I would interview someone new and I was nervous. I would start thinking, well, how does a dog feel with this person? And I would start feeling people's energy. So the book was a lot of fun for me to write. And it's just been something that I always wanted to do. And at the end of I don't want to say the end, I'm still handling, but there was a part of me at one point that felt like that calling that I had to always do something, I had sort of given up on that. I just hadn't figured out how we would do that. So this book feels like a completion in me, where I've been able to honor that part that
Right.
just wanted to give back to the community and to just show just how much we give. I mean, people on the outside sometimes see us handlers as these strong people, and we're always conquering and winning, and we win all these ribbons. Yet handlers they're such giving people. When I started working on the book, everyone I asked, just really, really busy people, and they stopped what they were doing. And Kelly, how can I help? And it really took me aback, because it was powerful, the kindness. There's just so much to handlers and to dog people, and we tend to only see a certain aspect of each other.
Yeah. So when you're led in that to that inner world, it's sort of like what I do a bit, because I'll call someone out and they have busy lives, and they'll, like you put yourself time aside for me today, and I get that all the time from people, and I learn every time I interview somebody. I learn something. It's the best, isn't it? So we give them out to everybody, but I'm kind of selfish. I do it for me too. So I want to know these things.
Well, and I think that's where we're really lucky. We followed the joy, our passion, and money in a career came of that. I think the majority of dog people, they're not in it for the money. They love the dogs. They love the experience. And we are really fortunate people that we get to follow our joy and do what we love. And I actually, I hope that's actually a message in my book, is just trusting it, following it, and the rest will come. And we should love what we're doing.
No, for sure. I'm looking forward to reading it. I have it here, and I'm going to put some time aside and read it, and all the different people. I can't wait to hear from them. So it's going to be fun. So what's next for you? You have any judging aspirations?
I've considered that. I wrote in the final chapter that I do write about is on burnout and following your passion. And for me, which I resonated with you, I've heard with some of the challenges as you get older and your body is not loving running around in circles as much as it did when it was younger. The mileage
starts to build up.
Yes. And so my last chapter of my book, I write about these feelings that I was having with, well, what's next? And what's next when this has always been my passion and this has always been my joy, was showing dogs. But now my body's not wanting to do so much of it. And honestly, I don't necessarily know what's next. What I do know is that I really enjoy writing, which is fun. I love connecting and talking with people like you. I love learning about what's going in our heads and connecting more with people. So if there could be a next step where I'm able to, maybe I am teaching some one-on-one workshops and coaching. I love coaching because one of the things that I loved about dogs is when you get this dog that is so insecure. Taffy talks about this. Michelle talks about this. Janice talks about this. There's actually, it was predominantly women, but their greatest joy is taking an insecure dog and building its confidence and having it step into the show ring and just like, pow, here I am. And you just watch them grow and grow and grow. I like doing that with people now. So if there's an opportunity to coach more people wanting to learn how to show dogs, I believe that I have like a holistic, and I know that word is sort of, overused, but learning to be a great dog show handler is going to serve you. And when I watch people with their dogs, I can see their energy and maybe how they're lacking in confidence. And when I'm teaching a class, one of the things that I'm teaching them is it is your job to project and to be confident. And your dog feels that. Your dog feels your energy. And so for many people that might have been insecure in themselves, they're going to step out of their comfort zone for their dog.
Oh,
There's
sure.
so much we won't do for ourselves that we'll do for our dog. And, I also feel I'm very empathic. When when I'm coaching people, I can feel their energy if they're open to it. I always ask first. But when I'm showing a dog, this was 2 weeks ago, I had an owner come up to me and she was asking me why her dog was turning and looking at her on the go around, and she was running around with her hand behind her back. And I said, well, it could be any number of things. It could be 20 different things. Let me watch. And I watched her going down and back with her dog, and I wasn't necessarily getting a read on it. And so I said, do you mind if I take her down and back with myself? And when I started taking this bitch down and back, I could feel in through her loin area that she was very sensitive, and she was highly sensitive, and she was sensing everything going on in the dog show. And so then I went back and I shared that this dog is there's a lot of energy going on in her because she's on high alert. And so the more confident the owner is in being able to be strong and be self-assured, the less need the dog is to feel reactive and worrisome. And so that would help settle her energy down. So these things are there's a lot of learning that can go into this person becoming a better dog show handler. It's going to teach her to be stronger with her energy, even with other people in the world.
Well,
so
dog shows alone have done that for people,
Yes. And whether, when they come in, if you want to do this, you're going to need to have thick skin. And so where I see myself would love to go in a direction would be to be coaching more people, more coaching. I would even love to be speaking with kennel clubs for people that really want to make a positive difference. I think we need a lot more leadership, and we're facing a lot of challenges, and we do need people to step up and lead and take responsibility and to do it in a compassionate way. So I don't know what that means.
It sounds busy.
Yes, and selling and marketing my book. I also think it has the potential to bring a lot of new people into the sport, and we could really use that right now.
I hope that works out. I'm sure it'll work out for you. It sounds like it's going to be a great read. So I think it'll be successful, Cal.
Okay, we're going to go with that. So.
We haven't talked about mentors. You touched on some people,
yes,
but you've only touched on them. I want to know who was impactful in you becoming this handler you are.
So, in terms of mentors, I think this is it's a great question. As I said, I didn't work with anyone specifically.
No mentors. Some of my mentors don't even know they're my mentors. So,
well, that's an excellent point. My mentor, Gwen DeMilta, absolutely was someone that she was up on a pedestal to me in terms of how
a lot of us.
Yes. It was just magic. When a dog was placed in her hands, it was magic. Gwen will openly admit to you that when it came to business, that wasn't her strong suit. Terry Hunt was more professional. So Terry knew more the business end of things, contracts and such. So I would go to Terry for things like that. And then Gwen was someone I was just always aspiring to be able to handle like her. And what I think is beneficial when it comes to mentorship that I can say is that I know for me, it was a great disservice not having more mentors. And another thing that I found very interesting in doing my interviews for the books is I didn't have any male mentors. And men conduct business very differently in general. And I will even find, even now in my life, I have a heavy, a lot of female influence, a lot of female friends, and I will find, no, I need to go get male perspective here. So I think that that's very helpful. It's just very helpful having multiple perspectives because people see things very, very differently. And when, for instance, when I interviewed Michael Scott, he was so different than me. I can't tell you the number of times I sat down and I was just like, I just don't know how to do this. I couldn't wrap my head around that. You know, Michelle Scott, she was easy. Janice Hayes, we're very similar, but Michael, he was different. And I grew so much because I really, really wanted the reader to understand Michael. And it was hard for me. And in the end, I really benefited. But, you know, Michael is one that said, when I asked him about his success, he said, oh, it just happened. It's like, what do you mean, Michael? It just happened. Like, I worked so hard. And here's this person like, oh, it just happened. And lots of lessons in that for me. But Michael, you know, he's very, very much about business and very much about being a professional. And Gwen was very, very, it was all about the dogs. It was not about the money. It was not about being a professional. It wasn't about acting like a professional. No. Gwen was in it to win it. And it was about the dogs. And she would tell me, oh, if you need business advice, don't ask me. You know, and that was really one of the beauties of Gwen is that Gwen knew who she was and she knew who she wasn't. And in my chapter about Michael, I even wrote when I closed up the chapter, I said, wow, my life would have been very, very different if Michael had been a mentor of mine. And for instance, Gwen had this perspective. It was all about the dogs. She came from it as a breeder. And if a judge was not in integrity of the breed and they did a poor job, in her opinion, judging it, that was wrong. They needed to be held accountable. That was basically their throat should be slit. Like it was terrible. And I lived with that. Like that was my reality. That's what I was competing against. And then, you know, the integrity, and you need to go talk to these judges and you need to tell them, and it was very, very different. And then Michael says, it's a game. What? It's a game? Michael, this is serious. Now, Michael's serious, and I make light of it when he says this, but Michael's very, very specific that he has a job to do, and he has handlers that hire him to do a job, and he's there to be a professional and to conduct himself professionally. And it is the judge's job to judge the dog. It is the breeder's job to breed. It is the judge's job to judge, and it is the handler's job to handle, pick the judges, and make the right decisions for the dog. And there's just such clarity that Michael brought to the table that was very, very helpful to me. So
he's that kind of guy, though. I've spent some time with Michael, and he is that kind of guy. He's very structured in his approach. So
Yeah, and I've just found myself laughing in the interview. And honestly, I wasn't planning on interviewing Michael. I interviewed Michelle, and she kept saying, "Oh, you should talk to Michael. You should talk to Michael." And we happened to be at a show, and she asked Michael if he would do an interview with me, and we did. And Michael says, "Great dogs are made." And I'm like, well, I've made great dogs. Like, I've seen a beautiful dog, and I've gone in there and I've worked it and I've worked it and I've worked it and I've turned it into an incredible dog. And I'm looking at Michelle going, is he for real? And he said, oh, yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I did all that stuff, but no, I give the needy dogs to Michelle. I was like, wow, like he knows who he is. And then speaking with Michelle, Michelle, she doesn't like the campaign. She likes nurturing, and she likes making people happy. And it really was just so fascinating to me, just seeing how Michelle can just be Michelle and Michael is him, and they're both good with who they are. And it was very eye-opening for me, as well as being a sole proprietor. I run my business on my own. It's just me. And seeing a husband and wife team where I guess I could say, wow, they're so lucky because they working together. It's, oh, no, this dog's a better fit for you. And oh, this dog's a better fit for you. Whereas for me, any client that came to me wanting to show the dog, I had to figure out how to make myself make that happen. And now, having had some experience, now I look back and sometimes it's just, this dog would be better served with someone else. I don't think we're a good fit. But boy, back then I thought I needed to have every solution to any problem that came along. And that was my job. And being able to see how the husband and wife teams work together, it was just amazing for me. So perhaps in my ignorance and having not had mentors and not worked as a team like this, perhaps my own ignorance is helping me write a book for people that are learning to be able to, cover some dynamics about maybe what not to do and some things to do.
There's no question, because it is. I remember, when I had partners and whatnot, it was almost a stay in your own lane mentality. Oh, I can do that, and you can do this, and it's every once in a while that dog will come along that we both would look at and go, well, I'll try this and you try that, and come up with a solution. So
yes, and as someone that's like been trying to navigate all lanes, it is liberating to just go, I'm just better if I stay in my lane. And having the sense of knowing who you are and knowing you don't need to be all things. Maybe just somebody else is a better fit. And this, in the writing, my intention was, it's not a how-to book. I tell stories, and people that want to learn are going to learn and pick up what they need reading the stories.
Yeah, that's the best way too. It's easier to come across to most people with stories. So when you give them just a recipe of how to do something, a lot of people can't see that.
So I thought this was just a handler thing. We don't like being told what to do. I know I don't like being told what to do. And so it's more, unless I ask, and then please tell me. But, sometimes I find, especially when I'm given a dog for the first time, and people that I've been working with that know how I work, we can very quickly say, do this, this, this. But if I have an owner coming and giving me a dog for the first time, I don't want that messing. I want to feel my way into the dog first. So, that's probably some of why I wrote it this way.
No, it makes sense. So one last question for you then, Kel. If you were to meet the 20-year-old Kelly Marques now, what advice would you give her?
Oh, relax. Yes. Just relax. Just do your best. Focus on being the best you can be in that moment, and the rest will come.
It's true. It's true. I
Yeah.
agree with that wholeheartedly.
And have fun.
Yep. And put time aside, which I've always been horrible at, but put time aside for yourself. So
Yeah, I don't know if I could have. I think that's great advice, but boy, I was drivey.
yeah.
Boy, I was drivey.
We're
And
young, we're ambitious. We want to
yes.
climb that mountain.
But it's good for people like us being able to say that, because then as you get some of that driviness settles down a little bit, you can say, "Oh, that's right. Will said this. Now it's time to settle." But
Yeah.
absolutely, yes. Just relax.
So what do you have coming up?
So much. The book is going to launch on April 9th.
Oh, good. It's exciting.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to talk to people about this. I really just want to see what it makes people think of. It's designed to be provocative. I say some things that are edgy. I say things that people may not like. Good. Let's talk about it.
Right.
So my launch date is April 9th. I plan to be handling dogs and promoting the book, occasionally having some booth space where I'm selling the book. Hope to be doing some more coaching, continue to do an occasional handling clinic. And the judging is still a thought
Still
in the
there?
back of my head. But right now I'm just so excited about this book that
I can tell. Yeah.
the judging thing just took a back seat, because I'm like, oh, I'm really hot to trot on this. Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the luck, Kelly. And thank you for giving me this time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to connect with you again, Will. And yes, hopefully we'll see more of each other.
Oh, for sure we will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Kel. That was a quick hour, Kelly. I really enjoyed that, and I wish you all the luck with your book. Don't forget, everybody, the launch date is April 9th for Behind the Scenes of Best in Show by Kelly Lyn Marques. So, if you liked what you listened to here, please make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button, and don't forget about the podcast, The Dog Show Drive, with myself, Wayne Kavanaugh. And if you want to get a hold of me at Will Alexander's Dog Show Tips. Until then, take care, guys.